Hello, let's talk about security. Not the kind of security you may be familiar with, but ransomware. What is it, and what can be done to counter it?
So ransomware is really kind of the latest and obviously the evolution of cyber threats. And what it's really about is instead of just infecting a system and maybe trying to get visibility into the network, they're actually encrypting the data, locking it up and saying, by the way, you're shut down. And I'll give you access to your information after you pay me a fee. And so the thing about it is it's so disruptive. It literally will bring a business to a complete halt. So it's not just an inconvenience anymore. It's highly disruptive.
I think ransomware, the effects of ransomware can be disastrous to any business. And it's not the financial effects that we are talking about. It can go way beyond the general finances. It can cost a business its whole reputation. If it's a security company, it can potentially bring that company down. If it's a company that handles a lot of user records, it can result in a lot of the privacy issues and things like that. So ransomware can be very disastrous. Say for our own company, I'm from IDC, and it's International Data Corporation. Now data is the middle name, it's what's earning us everything. And if we are held for ransom for this data, it's like striking IDC at its heart, and it can be a big consequence to this. It can even result in companies going bankrupt. So it is a big issue today.
So ransomware is a very specific threat that gains access to an endpoint through a variety of ways. Typically, it's either through a spear phishing campaign or a water holing type of attack. Once the malware gains access to the endpoint, it essentially encrypts the entire contents of the system itself. Now, in terms of who's propagating it, most of the threat actors that we see in terms of this specific threat, most of it's created, as far as we can tell, out of Eastern Europe, but then it's spread, much more globally at this point. It's very easy now to have attack toolkits that can readily recreate these same threats with what we're seeing as ransomware as a service platforms, where anybody can essentially go take the Tor browser, log on to or navigate on the dark web to one of these ransomware as a service sites, and essentially create a very custom binary payload of ransomware to use to attack any entity that they choose.
Well, ransomware has kind of blown up recently, right? It's been around for a long time. First instance of ransomware will go back to 1989. I think if you look at why it's become a big problem again, one, it's become much easier to knock out endpoints. So to gain control of someone's laptop has become easier and easier over the past few years. The other component to that is the Bitcoin piece, because in the past, tracing the ransom was a lot easier. Now people are asking for Bitcoin, which is very difficult to trace. So you're seeing that combination of being able to get the money out and being able to compromise the machine at the same time.
Why are we seeing so much ransomware today?
It's really classic business in the context of it's pretty easy to implement for the hackers, and they get immediate results. So they're getting very easy money out of it. People are, rather than fight it, they're actually making the ransom low enough in amounts to where people would rather just pay it so they can get back to business. And so it's just proving to be a lucrative business for these folks.
I think we're seeing a strong resurgence, if you will, in the sense that users nowadays are showing a willingness and propensity to pay the attackers. And just with any sort of ransom situation, when the attackers get paid and make money, they continue to try it again until they don't get paid.
What can be done to counteract ransomware?
Well, I mean, first off is if you can change user behaviors, good luck, and to avoid clicking on links that activate these types of things. But it really comes down to malware, and increasingly it's targeted malware. And really the only way to address that is to have more advanced security capabilities. Part of what we recommend is many of the devices don't have local endpoint security, or they're operating outside of the enterprise, they're no longer behind the firewall. And so you need more advanced security running at the cloud layer of the network so that we can inspect the content on the fly, actually detect a suspicious stream of data, send it off for sandboxing, and uncover these types of threats and shut it down before it's ever delivered to the enterprise. So that's one of the ways that we're seeing a growing approach to solving this kind of threat?
Well, a lot of the traditional security vendors have really struggled recently to try and stay ahead of this curve, right? And so what you'll see is a lot in industry where they are talking about proponent or ways that you can help recover from an attack, right? And so things like having good backups of your systems in place so that you can restore those systems in the event of an attack, right? But that doesn't really help from a prevention standpoint. And that's where we fundamentally disagree, I think, with the rest of the industry at large, where we still think that prevention is very, very possible with our Cylance Protect solution that utilizes AI and machine learning to counteract this.
Yeah, if you look at how do we counteract ransomware, we have to prevent the attack of the device in the first place. So one of the issues we've seen in the security industry is a move towards more detection and response. And unfortunately, at that point, it's too late to stop ransomware. We have to get back to preventing the attack in the first place. And so if you look at new techniques with prevention, whether that be something like an isolation approach where no content ever reaches an endpoint, those are the types of things that will help because you no longer get the initial compromise, which would then lead towards downloading a file that would encrypt all the files on the machine. So if you can prevent the attack in the first place, that's how you're going to stop ransomware.
Will it be possible to effectively counteract ransomware, and if so, how?
I think hackers today, there are two things that are happening. One, they are financially very motivated. And second, they are very well backed by people who have big pockets of money. So the kind of techniques that they do, the kind of technologies they use are generally a step ahead, and that's where the security companies today come into picture. They're trying to counter these technologies, but I say that it is possible, but every time you counter a hacker, you come up with a new technology, they are going to be able to counter it back. So it's a vicious circle that I say will keep on going forever, I think.